Rise, Red River explores trauma and a dying world, but it's also a story of redemption. The revolutionary trilingual play written by Tara Beagan follows a lone matriarch as they dredge a dried-up riverbed, uncovering human remains, which then share their stories. Caleigh Crow, who performs the French-spoken parts, joins UTalk to discuss the play, its message, the significance of having a play in English, French, and Anishinaabe-Moan, and what she's learned through the production. Let's get into it.
I'm Caleigh Crow, and I'm playing the role of all other women in Rise, Red River. So what that means is that I play maybe three and a half roles, if you want to get conceptual with it throughout the course of the play.
Okay, interesting. I'd like to touch on that a little bit more later, but to start things off, for people who are listening, they're hearing about this new play that's arrived here in Winnipeg, Rise, Red River. What is it about? What's the synopsis of this show?
So the show takes place in the not too distant future. It's sort of post-apocalyptic styles. There are three actors on the stage. There's Trip, who is played by Tracy Nipanak, and then Ancestor, who is played by Marcia Knight. They are sort of who you first meet, and you gather that they've been walking this wasteland for a while, and they're looking for anyone that they can find. They haven't found anybody yet. So that's sort of where we start from. And then they find a couple people, and those people are played by me. And my roles are in French. Tracy's role is in English, and then the Ancestor speaks Anishinaabe-Moan. So that's sort of how the language breakdown happens.
So every actor is kind of approaching it from a different angle then.
Yeah, exactly.
What got you involved in this production? Why did you want to be a part of this story? And how has the process been, from those early screening days to, now where you're performing?
I'm really honored to have worked with Tara Beagan on a few projects for a couple years now. She's been a huge inspiration to me. I mean, her writing is so strong, and just the vast amount of work that she has and all the different topics that it covers. Her style is so strong and so confrontational, and so challenging, that I think she's really a very important writer here in Canada. And I first heard excerpts from this script actually in Lethbridge at the Canadian Centre for Theatre Research conference for that year. I think it was 2021 or 2022. And Tara was the keynote speaker. And so for part of her keynote speech, she read from some of the script, and just even the excerpt that she read, I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. It was just so moving immediately. Her words are so affecting and so deliberate and specific that it just cuts right to you. So, ever since then, I just was like, wow, when's Rise Red River going to happen? And I was also really fortunate to be part of some of the early workshops of the script, reading for the character that I'm playing now. And this is back when the script was just in English. So, so that's how long I've been, a part of the development of the piece. To see it kind of go through the different phases has been really illuminating for me as a theater artist, and also I'm also a playwright. So, it's just invaluable artistic powerhouse-ness, to be around.
Well, exactly.
So, yeah. So I've just always been so grateful to be a part of the process. And the next phase was going to happen in French and in English, and go up at Prairie Theatre Exchange and at Théâtre Cercle Molière. And then there was a big update, which was trilingual piece, which was when I just sort of felt okay, we're really it's so fearless. That's another thing I really admire about Tara and Article 11, which is her theater company that she runs with Andy Morrow. They're just so fearless in what they do. They're really not afraid to go in these bold new directions and and to really experiment with the performance aspect of it. And, in a country where we recognize the two colonial languages, to represent those on the stage and then also bring in that third Anishinaabe-Moan language and to hear them all together, it really is. It was a completely new experience for me as a performer and as a theater artist, and I think it's new for a lot of the audience as well. So yeah, it's a big experiment in the form, and then the content is so strong too. The message of the piece, the how, the way that she's able to so deftly link and connect missing and murdered Indigenous women with the climate crisis. I mean, it's devastating, but it's also very real. And she leaves you just enough of a sliver of hope for you to hang on to, and that takes a lot of skill.
That's so important as creatives like yourself. You're mentioning you're a playwright. Being a part of others' stories and visions to help develop your own craft. As artists, you need the influences of others to understand their story, to understand your own story as well, to move forward. And as you're mentioning, it's the three languages, the two colonial and the one language of the land, Anishinaabe-Moan. And you're exploring these concepts of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls, as well as we're in a world where the Red River is completely dried up. For some, it's like, that would never happen. It's like, well, we're starting to see the signs of these impacts. And maybe this is just, I haven't seen it yet, but just my idea of you're taking these languages, the two colonial languages of their languages that are understood now in kind of the dominant language. And, through colonialism, Canada has changed. And through kind of traditional ways, understanding and reconnecting with the past, we find these stories. We hear about the stories of the ancestors in here. And maybe through that, as you're mentioning, that ray of hope, maybe through learning from each other, we can move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I really believe that, the Earth, the planet will be okay. The planet's taking care of itself, right? I think that, in the battle.
Well, it's if we want to still be here, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. We might not be here for that part, but or we might have to really radically change as a species to adapt to whatever the new, environment is. But I think the only, I do really think we need to be, I don't know, responding to our planet and responding to these crimes, to the injustices that we commit against each other. I think, yeah, I think it's so clearly laid out in the show, the link between these two crises.
Well, it's all connected. The systemic things that have been implemented for hundreds of years have led us to the point where we are today. And by ignoring those elements, it's just going to keep on going.
I mean, agreed. I think, I don't know. I think it's philosophical. I think it's psychological. I think, we have more access to, unprecedented levels of knowledge. And it doesn't seem to be making a difference, because I think it is not about what we know, but kind of what we feel and what we intentionally decide is important. And human life is not quite important. And then we have internal hierarchies within that too. We have sort of the way that we behave like resource extraction is the most important thing to us. And I think, we are all simultaneously responsible, and we are also being held hostage by this mindset. It's so deeply ingrained and so vast. I mean, I think, I don't know what to do, but I think what I love about being an artist is being able to offer up something to think about, or a new way of looking at things, or something that confirms what you're feeling, helps you understand what you're feeling in your place.
It helps spark a conversation, right?
I mean, that's the hope. Always the hope. Yeah.
So through this process of being a part of this film, and there's been a couple of shows now, how have people been receiving this story? What are they resonating with the message being presented?
I think so. I think it's hard to Maybe quantify. I think people feel,
I mean, fair enough.
and it's hard for me to tell from my perspective up on stage, but I can tell when, I can tell when the audience is leaning forward and listening, and when they're feeling a bit too maybe vulnerable, or when they're just not, we have a couple, like, we do like high school shows too during the day,
Yeah.
and sometimes I can tell the kids are like, it's 10 a.m. Like, I'm not ready to talk about this, and I'm just in grade 11, and I'm just trying to learn French or whatever. But then I think it depends on who's in that audience, because I know, opening night, we had tons of community members come out from the theater community, from the Francophone community, from the Indigenous community, who they are such generous people. I could really tell they were hanging on our words, and you can sometimes you can hear people crying. So that's kind of how I can gauge it, and I think it's maybe challenging for people, and I just hope something that I'll never know is like, how long do those feelings stay with folks after they leave.
Yeah, is this something that they just think about for that evening and then it's completely gone the next day? Because, yeah, you want that impact. You want people to be like thinking about something for long periods of time, reminiscing. And
I think it could be that kind of piece where when you're experiencing it, it's maybe a little overwhelming, and maybe a little, because there's a lot visually happening. There's everything happening with the languages. We have projections. We have, and then the content itself is quite heavy. So it's one of those things where maybe when you're experiencing it can be a little bit much, but as you move through the rest of your life, and maybe things,
yeah,
oh, that's what this is. I'm getting some clarity on this moment, or why I was feeling so challenged, or why I felt so touched. It's hard to say, but that's what that's what you're always going for, right? As an artist, is to hopefully stay with people.
We'll have to see once the last performance happens to see how people are talking about this in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, we'll see.
How has it been working with your fellow actors and the stage manager and everything? Like, how have you been feeling about the performances, leading up to here?
The team is amazing. I think you have some real local legends involved on this show, and I'm from Calgary, but I've seen Tracy act in Calgary, and I know just the talent that exists here in Winnipeg, and so to be able to get to know these awesome artists has been just such a delight. And the languages has been the really interesting thing to work with in the rehearsal hall, and how do we like, I'm bilingual, but Tracy doesn't speak French. So how do we, like, I'm giving
Yeah,
you
what are
your
those
cue
interactions
line,
like?
like, I'm asking a question, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, how do we learn lines, and how do we, what happens if we drop a line, or go, like, because I can only speak French, so I can't quite give clues, you know what I mean? So it was, that part was pretty challenging, and I know for Marsha to be asked to uh, perform this piece in Anishinaabemowin, I like, that was very serious duty for Marsha, and to see the reverence with which she approached those words, and the translation, and the coaching session she was able to have with Wanda Barker, those were like, it was kind of like what, she talked about it like it is work, but it also seemed like it was very like spiritual as well, and very like affecting in the soul. So there's those things that like that come up that you don't expect. And I just learned French in Alberta, and I don't like, I wasn't sure how, like, I was like, I don't even know if I can memorize a line in French. Like, I've never done that before. You know what I mean? Like, am I going to be able to like really?
It was pushing boundaries in all areas.
Yeah, totally. And then I think because we were all, it's very new for all three of us actors. We just held that respect for each other, and that trust that we are experienced professionals in our field, and that we trust our processes, we trust each other. TCM and PTE Article 11, that the three co-producers have been very supportive, and our SM is bilingual too. So me and the SM
Yeah.
are able to be on the same page, but we have to really lend our patience and our trust to everyone else, and they have to do the same thing, right? So it's been really a really unique experience. I mean, it's really hard too. Like portray some of the things that are portrayed. Like it's really heavy sometimes, and I think one of the great, really wonderful things that TCM has is this beautiful quiet space that anybody in the audience or on the volunteer team or even as actors have been invited into the quiet space, which has like medicines and like trained people who can just help coax you through like anything that is
Yeah, help
affecting you.
ground you in a
Exactly.
situation.
Exactly. And just help you move through it because it can be this is real life, right? Like we part of what we did as a
Exactly.
process is we went to the vigil on February 14th for missing and murdered Indigenous women. We marched in the march, and everybody who knows someone who was taken, who was stolen, has a placard with their sign on, with their name on it of their stolen people, and there was placards with names on there of the characters that I play, and to feel like this is Tanya's family, and this is these are these people's families that are here that are marching here today that still feel that loss of that person and their community, the context they come from, they also feel the loss of that person, and so that's something that I take very seriously and that I try to carry with you know as much grace and as I can because you just never know who's in that audience, right? You never know what they've gone through and where they came from, where they're going to after they leave, and I think TCM is very aware of that and has provided a lot more resources than I think a lot of theaters where I come from in Calgary do. Like if that's not a common practice where I'm from, so in that sense, it's a lot of ups and downs. Like I don't know, that's art, I guess. Like
Hmm.
that's
Exactly. It's pushing you emotionally into other levels because for a lot of people, you think about in terms of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls, oftentimes if you're not a part of that community, especially myself, white male, like I'm completely disconnected almost from that world, but it's happening right here on our doorsteps. And I think for a lot of Canadians, it's a wake up call about what's going on. It's like, oh, stuff like this only happens in other parts of the world. That doesn't happen here. It's like, no, it's happening here. It's still happening.
I think here it's a long history of the people who are the most marginalized being the most active in trying to address these issues because it's not a matter of convenience for a lot of people. It's a matter of life and death. And I think historically it's been easier to turn a blind eye. And I think, now with social media and a lot of these other things, I mean, there's a lot negative that can be said about it. But I think one thing that you can say is that you don't know anymore, right? Like you
Hmm.
can, anything you're not sure about, you can find out about. It's just a matter of if you're scared to look or not. And and I get that because you don't want to hear that the life you live is based off of like the brutalization and murder of women. This is like not just a Canada thing. It's not just a last 300 years thing. It's like a thousands of years thing, pretty widespread throughout like across the globe. And so I don't know what to say except that like I honestly think that the only thing keeping anything going is like the love of these people that they have for their families and the love of
Yeah.
people who have experienced these injustices to still feel strong enough to fight for what's right and to speak up for themselves.
Through this production and through your performances and through this entire project, Rise Red River, what do you think you've found helped you grow the most in this? What do you think you're going to take away to be able to apply to your future projects?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that I think I'm still like there's a, like I'm still in it where I'm not super able to
Yeah.
reflect, but I can tell already that like, I mean, once we started really rehearsing all day in French, I could feel my throat change, my voice, like how I had to just like move my mouth totally physically changed me. And
Interesting.
yeah, be embodying these different women, that's new for me too. I don't do too much acting. much more of a director and a playwright, but I do act a little bit, but I've never played multiple roles like this before in another language. And so having to really think about, okay, so there's some people in the audience that won't understand what I'm saying. So how can I help them and make things a little bit more clearer in my physicality and in the way I'm delivering it and the way I'm standing and,
Yeah.
those kinds of things. As a performer, I feel like I have, yeah, and also bigger than like in a normal conversation, like because it's theater, right? It's not like a documentary or anything. It's like it is a performance, and so like thinking about it, like people obviously can access the subtitles, but how do I don't want to, the subtitles can't do my job for me. Like that is, I have to be able to still be communicating with every other tool that I have.
Yeah, subtitles are just so they understand the context. You still have to give the performance.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's been something I think I've grown a lot in my acting practice, and also to be able to like separate myself, Caleigh the person, from the stuff that happens to the characters I'm playing, because I think it's talked about a lot more, but like when you are embodying this, that's your actual body, and how do you protect yourself from the trauma? Like we're depicting pretty serious traumas on the stage. I know we're trying to sell the show, but I swear it's worth the coming to see. But I think as an actor, like how do I make sure I'm not taking this stuff home with me and attending to my mental and spiritual health, as well as just like what do we do when we drop a line, or what do we do when things like that come up on stage. But it's been truly like I've just been soaking it all in. I've been observing also Tara and her directing practice. I've learned a lot about, just how to make a real strong decision and how to like communicate what you want, and just how like she has this really great skill of how to get people on board with the vision, right? Like how to with projections nowadays, it's like you are making a movie and you're making a play at the same time. Like which is like that's a lot. It's a lot of work and a lot of different so many moving parts to it, and she just trusts in herself and in her vision so much that it happens. Like the will is there. And so there's just so much that I've been taking in and learning about, and I will have to write about in my journal for many months to come, I'm sure. Yeah. It totally has been, like I think there's some of those projects that you just want to stay with, like I was saying, when I heard it, just the excerpt that first day, I was like, oh, Tara, like, can I read a draft? Like, can like how
it's like I'm in.
I'm right here, I'm ready. whatever, and so then to be able to follow it through, since then has just been, because it does matter to me. Like, these are, I know what it's like to be afraid of have family members who were scooped and have people be taken and by like the government and by like crazy psychos. Like, and so it's just like, it feels real. It feels really real. And it's hard to deal with real life. It is.
I'm sold. I mean, hard stories like this are so important to challenge ourselves in everyday life, that not to get too comfortable within things and see what's happening outside of your doorstep. So Caleigh, where can people see this show? What days is it playing?
Come on down to Théâtre Cercle Molière, which is on Provencher. And we have shows nightly on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays. The Friday, Saturday shows are at 8 p.m. and Wednesdays, Thursdays are at 7. And you can get your tickets online. And we are like running until the 23rd is our last show.
Fantastic. So there's still time to get some tickets.
There's still time. Oh, yeah.
The play is presented at the TCM and runs until March 23rd. Have any stories you'd like us to share or communities we should highlight? Leave a comment on our social media or reach out to us on our website. I'm Ryan Funk. This was You Talk, and have yourself a good one.